Doom Patrol episode 6 is here, and it's also the mid-season final. That's right, Doom Patrol will be taking a break after this week, and I'm pretty sure Titans starts afterwards. So I'm assuming how it's going to work out is Titans is going to finish, and Doom Patrol is going to come back to finish. So let's jump into the review, breakdown, and discussion. Welcome to NonStopAntonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. I love Marvel, DC, and anime, and if you do too, I hope you enjoy this video. The way we're going to be doing this today is talking about each character in a way and where the stories all lead up. Because, like all Doom Patrol episodes, it seems to focus on a group of characters, and then in the end, they all group up in a sense, and then we finally get that big reveal about what's going on. So the episode, of course, starts off with everyone no longer being a baby, because they were able to reverse the spell, after Willoughby and his bunny took Jane's immortality. And I absolutely love how Jane has this calling to be a hero and stop the bad guys, and Cliff's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Nope, we're good. I'm not getting into this. We're staying away because he doesn't want to be used as a weapon, which is a big thing with Cliff this season. I'm noticing after he killed the zombie with his hand, the one that he was supposed to touch his grandson with, he's been very hesitant to get back into the fight. However, that really shows with his story this episode with Jane that he's learning that, you know, he's not going to be able to touch his grandson. It's already passed, and all he can do is try to be better. But let's start with Jane, because Jane goes in the underground to have everyone doing puzzles. None of them want to stop Immortus and deal with it. They're just doing what Kay told them to do, which is interesting because I thought Jane was the only one that got a puzzle, but it turns out that Kay's trying to get all the personalities to find who they are, rather than them being tied to Kay, who they are as an individual. So I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen once everyone solves the puzzle, because everyone there was a lot closer than Jane was, because Jane hadn't even started yet. And with Jane trying to find her own identity, she goes to see Shelly, who's the Fog, because she has feelings for her. And the whole point about her going to see her was to see if she can accept being loved, because now that she's aging, it's not like she's here for the rest of her life. She only has a limited time now on Earth. And I thought this was interesting too, because she tries to kiss Shelly but can't, and later talks about how she doesn't feel like she can be loved. And Cliff says, you can't stop the people that care about you. So even though that she might think that she can't be loved, that's not true. There are people around that actually care about Jane, and she needs to learn to accept that. She can't always think that no one loves her, because there are the individuals that do. And I really like how this was a big moment for Cliff as well, because after saying that he wasn't gonna do anything, he wasn't gonna go fight, he was gonna keep working on the car, because that's something he could control, something that he can give, and something he can build rather than destroy and give to his grandson, because all he does is feel like a weapon because he killed the zombie, and that's all everyone ever wants to use him for, is something to fight with. But I like how this leads to him giving his hand to Jane, the hand that can feel, and letting him hold her hand, really showing that he cares about Jane, and also kind of proving to himself that even though his grandson is not the first thing he touched, he can still be better and not be a weapon and make people feel better as well, and actually show that he cares about the people he cares about. And then in that moment, you have Willoughby showing up again, absolutely beaten to shit. Turns out the Immortus agents went after them to get the immortality from the bunny and killed the bunny to take it. Which is shocking, because apparently they're supposed to be some of the strongest magic wheelers, and they all got their asses kicked, which means Immortus and his followers are a pretty big threat. And I really like while Cliff is also losing it during this episode, while he's talking to himself with his hand, he goes to the freezer, which turns out he has the butt still. The zombie butt is still in the freezer, because he thought of himself as a bad person after killing zombie, and his subconsciousness with his hand is trying to tell him that he's not a bad person, he's a good person. He saved the butt, he didn't kill it, he's not a weapon. Which I thought was really interesting, because in the end, of course, they're gonna cause the apocalypse because the butt got away. Which all comes full circle from the very first couple episodes, where they were trying to stop the butt apocalypse, and the butt apocalypse ends up coming true, because while they tried to stop it by killing the zombie butts, Cliff couldn't bring himself to do it, which ended up leading them to the zombie butts getting out and killing everyone. Which, if I bet you any money, if they just left the zombie butts alone, that apocalypse wouldn't have happened. So very interested to seeing if the apocalypse actually will come true though, because of how everything that's going on. Maybe Immortus will just wipe the butt apocalypse off the earth, but we will see. I just really like what that did for Cliff's character, really trying to show that he's not a machine, a weapon to be used, and that he's a person with his own soul and wants to be a good person and hates being used as that person just to kill, because he's a metal machine. of course, that leads into where everything goes to shit, but let's jump back and go to the next character. Because during this episode too, we also have Madame Rouge and Rita finally working together. Madame Rouge makes Rita the team leader once again, because she doesn't want to be the team leader. She's not a leader. I thought this was really interesting because it's showing them bonding once again after they forgave each other a bit in the last episode. Now they're trying to move past it and work together as a team. And I like how this leads them back to Ant Farm so that they can figure out who's been writing Immortus. And they find out that it's Wally that's been doing it, Wally Sage. And in the comics, Wally Sage is a depressed metahuman with the ability to bring his drawings to life. Like one of his creations was Flex Metallo, which we saw in season 1 of Doom Patrol. And we saw him a couple episodes ago when Dorothy and Space Case were attacked and the necklace was taken. So it's turning out that Wally is the one behind everything. He's getting Immortus to rise. He created Orquith because in the comics, Orquith is an imaginary world that was created by a group of philosophers who wrote an encyclopedia about it that did not exist, which just created this imaginary world within this other realm. The Doom Patrol later destroyed it in the comics by exploiting some of the contradictions within it, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think they're slightly tweaking it, so I'm pretty sure Wally's the one that made it this time, because he's able to make his drawings into actual things, and because he's making Immortus rise. And the thing is, during this too, they make you think that Wally dies right off the bat, because Rita freaks out after seeing him and turns into a giant blob, squishing him. And then when Madame Rouge picks up the picture, you see him kind of like in the picture, which what I think is happening is that Wally that was in that cell was a drawing from the original Wally, who is in Orquith right now, messing up the rest of the Doom Patrol. So, it's looking like Wally's the evil mastermind behind the whole entire Immortus project that's been going on. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when they get back, because of course they all lose this episode. And then we also get the Larry and Mr. 104 storyline with this, and we have Mr. 104 telling Larry that the whole reason that they went after each other is because he's trying to take his longevity, his immortality, like everyone else has been losing theirs. He also tells Larry why he's working with the group that's trying to make Immortus rise again, and it's because Immortus is hope. He can make their wishes come true. And all these people who want something are trying to get Immortus to rise so that their wishes could come true. I find it hilarious, though, that when Larry and Mr. 104 come back to the Doom Patrol, Cliff calls them out for sexual tension between them, because I keep thinking that that's what's going to happen, is that Mr. 104 is probably going to betray Immortus and his wish so that he can save Larry in the end, because he cares about Larry. They have like an interesting thing going on, especially after last episode where they saw both of them being experimented on and being forced to kill the people in the room with them. So they kind of have a similar bonding experience where they did terrible things because they were forced to. And when Keeg pushes Larry back through the portal, I was like, excuse me, what's going on? And then we find out the whole point of Keeg betraying them and pushing him towards Immortus and for Larry to lose his longevity was because of the future Keeg. Because the future Keeg showed him what was going to happen. And the future shows the zombie butts attacking Larry, ripping off his bandages, Larry giving up, flying into the sun, so that his radiation won't hurt anyone. And I think that's a big thing for Larry, is that he doesn't want to hurt anyone around him, so he's sacrificing himself. And because he flew into the sun in the future, he left Keeg all alone, and he was just a ghost because he died. Which is really interesting, and that the fact that Keeg wants to help Immortus so that doesn't happen, and Larry gives up his longevity because he's like, okay, I trust you. Which is going to be really interesting because Larry trusts Keeg, but by doing this, he's now making this big thing happen. So was Keeg really doing it for the right reasons? Probably not. I think he was just scared of losing Larry, and he was doing whatever he could to not let that happen. Then we got Vic and Derek this episode, because Derek brings Vic back to the Doom Patrol Manor. Then when Larry gets taken, Vic goes after them to make sure that his friend is safe, but Derek falls through with a knife. And at first I'm like, okay, this is gonna end poorly. They're gonna die right away. He's gonna lose his friend. He's gonna realize that he can't mix his superhero life and his non-superhero life together, or bad things will happen. However, that doesn't end up happening, and they end up, well, that doesn't happen this episode, and they end up apologizing to one another, and Derek tells Vic how him being Cyborg inspires him and his kids to be better people, which I thought was really touching, that even though they're not close friends anymore, seeing his friend as a hero inspires him, and inspires his kids to be better, which is great, because that's what a hero is supposed to do. They're supposed to inspire people, and that's what Cyborg did as a character until he lost his cybernetics. And I love how they had the great bonding moment where they're like, whatever happened, you're still one of us. Meaning that even though they don't talk a lot, Vic is still part of the group, even though they're distant. I also thought it was interesting how really quickly Derek figures out that you could write in Orquith to create things. So he creates a butterfly, and then they turn around and they make their Mr. Invincible robot that ends up becoming real and getting destroyed instantly, because with the powers from Immortus, everyone is just too OP to fight. Which again is really interesting, the fact that they had their opportunity to fight and they thought they were going to win and they lost really easily. It's just a big journey for Vic this season. He has the call to be a hero. He wants to save people, but he also wants his other life, and he's going to have to learn that he can't have both, or at least he can't have both a lot. Maybe he can still see his friends once in a while, but it can't be a constant thing. So, and I have a really bad feeling that Derek's either going to die or get really hurt, and Vic's going to blame himself for all of it. Especially because Derek has a family at home, and Vic doesn't want to let his kids go fatherless. It's going to be really interesting. So let's jump into the final fight, in a sense, about how the ending's happening and, you know, what's probably going to happen after this. Cliff and Jane come to fight and then instantly get trapped because of the Scissor Men. And I forgot to mention, the Scissor Men are also from the comics. I was really confused at them at first, and they're called Scissor Men who rule Orquith. And they also worship a god who exists at a mythical crossroads where realities meet. But in this, they're probably going to be worshipping Immortus, because that's just what's been going on, and everyone's worshipping Immortus. So slight changes to characters' backstories to fit this plot. But they're such weird characters that you wouldn't really know unless you've read some of the older Doom Patrol comics. It's not a big deal. But yeah, everyone just gets captured in the end by the Scissor Men because they just put their scissors around their necks, and honestly, you don't want to get chopped. That's it. That's literally it. They get captured and everything's going to go to shit. Because I'm assuming when we get back is that either Immortus will be risen already and it'll kind of be like a flash forward about what's happening. It'll already happen off screen, or Immortus will rise the next episode when they do return. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what it means to Immortus to rise, because the way they're talking about it, he's a deity. I'm curious to see if it'll be an actual person. Wouldn't put it past Doom Patrol to make him dress like the general and then show that he's still a deity. So give him that comic look, but also make him slightly different from the comics. With the Doom Patrol aging too, I'm kind of curious to see if Cliff's Parkinson's will rapidly affect him, because now that he's aging, all of a sudden, I feel like all that stuff that's been going on with him is going to make it a lot worse. And then Cliff is not going to be able to fight in a sense, because he'll be trying to deal with the Parkinson's and having that issue going on. So it's going to be really interesting coming back, because everyone's now going to be old. Just so curious. I want to know more, and it sucks that we're on break now. And with the ending with the zombie apocalypse happening now, like it's coming full circle. It's happening. It got out. Now, is it going to be trapped in the Doom Patrol manor, or is it going to escape? It's probably going to escape. And it's going to be curious to see who's affected by it and what kind of world they come back to. Because maybe they're going to need to use Immortus in the end, fix the zombie apocalypse. They're going to have to use their wish to save everyone else on planet Earth. Honestly, that's probably what's going to happen. They're probably going to have to use Immortus, get their own wish, and stop the zombie apocalypse. Find a way to defeat Immortus afterwards and set everything back. The one thing I like about this season is that we're really pushing these characters through character development, making them come face to face with their trauma, facing more trauma, trying to overcome it, and trying to figure out who they are as their own person. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all wraps up by the end of the season, because again, Cyborg is definitely going to get his cybernetics back. He's going to be back to that classic Cyborg, probably with a new look. And honestly, that's probably what his wish is going to be, because I feel like they're all going to get wishes. In a sense, they did help Immortus, and they're probably like, because we took your longevity, we will give you one wish. Cyborg, his cybernetics will come back. He'll be a superhero again. Cliff, there's also a chance he might take back the death with the zombie and be like, no, we're not going to do that, instead of being like, I don't want to be a robot anymore. Jane will probably be something along the lines of stopping the butt apocalypse, because she wants to prove that she's a hero, and everything else is her trying to be that hero and be her own person. Rita, probably bring back her long lost love. Madame Rouge, honestly, no idea. Larry will probably just be something to keep Keeg around. I'm very intrigued, because I know something is going to happen that we're not expecting, and Doom Patrol has a good way of doing that. And we want to see these characters develop a lot more, and I don't think that the stuff that's going to happen with them is going to retract their character development. I think whatever they do is they're going to do the more moral thing and try to push them forward to be better people. But what do you think? Because we haven't seen Dorothy or Space Case, like they left, and I thought they would have went to the Doom Patrol by now, but I guess they're going to be the heroes for the next part to try to save everything. So let me know down in the comments what your theories are, and what did you think of this mid-season final? It wasn't like this big epic final, but it did have a lot of big character moments and showing us where these characters are going to go in the future. I know we're going to have to wait a couple weeks, but I'm assuming Titans is back next week, so I'll be continuing my videos for those, so stay tuned. So thanks for watching. Leave a like if you like this video. It helps out the channel a lot. Hit the subscribe button to follow all my DC and Marvel breakdowns and reviews. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.